I would first of all like to reiterate our gratitude for the good cooperation as well that we have between the Commission and the European Court of Auditors, and the work that you do is very crucial as well for ours. And of course we are speaking here about also about public money that is at stake, and there you come in as well to see if we are doing things right and what we are not doing so good. So thank you very much for that, and I appreciate as well this opportunity to present my policy that I have already launched partly and that will come up over the next years, and a lot has been highlighted in the communication dated 19th of February, the so-called vision for agriculture and food, and this new vision aims to create an attractive and competitive future-proof and fair agri-food system for current and future generations, because we have a huge challenge ahead, or we are facing a huge challenge, namely that currently less than 12% of EU farmers are below the age of 40, and the average is above 57 years of age, and therefore we need to create the right environment that future generation are going to take this up. So the vision also sends a very clear message to the farming and food community to give them hope again, because you all remember last year they took it to the streets for various reasons. I will not go into all that details, but for us it's clear that farming and food are a strategic sector and a critical asset as well for Europe. And they are the backbone of our food sovereignty, competitiveness, sustainability agenda, and the vitality of our rural regions. And that is something I would like to especially highlight in these difficult times with the war going on in Ukraine. We have several member states that have huge common borders, not only with Ukraine, but as well with Russia, Finland, just to name it, 1,340 kilometers. What would be in those regions if farming and food producers and foresters wouldn't be present there? And that is another security relevance of our common agriculture policy. Also, the agri-food sector is, of course, valued for the services that it provides for nature as well, and our policies will have to continue to support them, and we have to we need a Europe that protects its agri-food sector against also unfair competition, and we will remain as well united against geopolitical shocks and threats, and there we have a lot as well presented in this vision, namely on reciprocity of standards. That is something very important. We are prohibiting phytosanitary products in the European Union, and the other products are coming in that are treated with that very same plant protection product, and that is something that is perceived as unfair. And I always say, if it's bad for human health or the pollinators in the European Union, it is as well outside the European Union, and that is something we are working on. And the other point is, of course, that we feel geopolitical threats. Just name the new steps by the Trump administration going bluntly on tariffs on European products, because they don't understand our VAT system, or they don't want to understand it. But nonetheless, that is something where we need to better prepare, and that is why we are launching as well the idea of a unity safety net, because we are very strong at the European Union when we are united. But when this unity is challenged, then we become very weak, and we have seen this under the Trump 1 administration, when we had this famous Airbus-Boeing dispute, where tariffs have been struck on our Italian cheeses, French wines, Spanish olives, etc. And then this unity is very fragile, and that is something where we need, on the one hand, on the legal side, we have an anti-coercion instrument, speak about it if that we are going to use that, and we need as well a financial envelope to protect this unity. And for me, it is very important we have tailored this vision on that we have on four main, let's say, focus lines. One, building an attractive sector that ensures fair standard of living, and as well leverages new income policies, income opportunities, like, for example, the bioeconomy, production of energy, etc., where we need to give new input as well to the farming community. And then we need a competitive and resilient sector in the face of global challenges. I mentioned just the alignment of standards when it comes to the reciprocity of standards, but as well we need to do our homework when it comes, for example, to simplification. That was the administrative burden, one of the reasons why our farmers heavily demonstrated last year, and often there are legislation, not only CAP, but as well other policy areas that are overlapping and coming down to a farm. I visited several member states, and this is what a lot of questions and concerns were coming up. I said, well, this is not agriculture policy, this is health policy, this is environmental policy, and there we need to take a deeper look as well what can be done to alleviate this heavy burden that they are facing. And then the future needs as well to be future-proof for the sectors, meaning that farmers know very well that they need healthy soils, they need sufficient and good quality water to produce, and they are as well the first victims when it comes to climate change. But I also believe they are our best barrier or defense line against climate change, and that is something we need to leverage as well, as I said, to maintain population in the countryside. That is a very crucial role. And then also I think it's very important to recreate the link between food and territories, because this is something that is lost from time to time as well. And to, let's say, that society appreciates as well the services that our farming community is delivering to the entirety of society. And so this is, of course, the vision is, let's say, a roadmap. It's not a legal file yet, but a lot of work streams are in there. And one of them is, for example, the work stream on livestock, which will be very important. As you know, we have now the European Board on Agriculture and Food, which is composed by 30 members from civil society, farmers, but as well from processing industry, etc., to as well have depolarized discussions on critical topics like, for example, livestock, but as well sustainability benchmarking system that we have announced to allow the farmers to better monitor as well the progress when it comes to sustainability and compare himself as well with other similar farms to see what can be done better to achieve as well significant results. And then, as I mentioned, generational renewal, a huge challenge, and therefore we will present during this year a strategy for generational renewal, which is one part of the future common agriculture policy, but as well this needs to be combined to national laws on tax incentives, for example, but as well retirement schemes for, let's say, older farmers in order that farms get available for future generations. But this is, of course, where we need to work very closely with the member states, because we see, as I mentioned, 12% under the age of 40 is the EU average. Austria is at 24%. How are they? Why are they doing so much better? Namely because of such a retirement scheme that allowed them to take over the farms quicker and easier. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the simplification. There we're going to have a simplification package, CAP focused, hopefully in April. And a second one by the end of the year that will be broader, including sanitary standards, including environmental standards, etc. So a lot of legislation that is not purely agriculture policy. And then for the future common agriculture policy, we have to design it simpler. It needs to be digital by design. And it needs to be better targeted to those who need it most. I'm again thinking about the next generation of farmers, but as well farmers in regions with the natural constraints, or family farms. I think that is what is most needed, and that is as well one of the conclusions of the so-called strategic dialogue, that that the future direct payments should be better targeted to those most at need. And this will, of course, depend a lot on the future MFF. As you know, there is one communication out now on the future MFF. I can tell you that I met with the 27 ambassadors in Brussels, and that they were not so amused about these first ideas. Namely, they wanted to have a stable budget based on 2 pillars. So this will, of course, this is not the beginning of a discussion, but we see that already there are divergent views. But I think we have to elaborate how we can streamline the EU budget as well, to make it more to make it simpler and as well avoid overlaps. That will be a huge challenge. As you know, we will have as well to start reimbursing loans for the next Gen EU. If that money was to be taken from the budget, then of course there is less for all the other priorities, and that is of course a huge challenge, but we need to think about that. Also, I think what is very important is that we have the right balance between incentives and regulation, because what farmers feel as well often, that we have a top-down approach, and we see when it is voluntary but with an let's say an attractive financial aspect, then they are more willing to do that and contribute. And this is as well giving them more flexibility when it comes to choosing what is most appropriate for the specificities of a farm. Then it is working better. So we need to think what can be done to incentivize rather than to regulate. And this is will be a huge challenge, of course. And then we have, of course, different concerns currently for the agriculture sector. The European Commission has, the President herself, signed the so-called Mercosur agreement on the beginning of December last year, and I believe that especially in the context, the geopolitical context that we are seeing with China, with the US, getting new opportunities for our agriculture food sector is very crucial, because as well when we see, for example, the offensive sectors that we have for the US, wines and spirits, the wine sector is under huge pressure in the European Union currently. You have as well a report on the grubbing up scheme and how this is working and delivering as well. But we need to find new alternative markets for them. The same goes for the milk and dairy sector, our high quality cheese as well. There would be an alternative to the US for that, but nonetheless we know that the agriculture sector is heavily contesting this agreement because they are for several reasons under pressure. So it will be key for me, and that is always what I'm saying, what I will have to deliver is that this competitiveness that has maybe been neglected a little bit over the last years needs to be back in the main focus, because if we create the right frame for this competitiveness, then I believe that our farming community doesn't have to fear international competition, and therefore alleviating the administrative burden, reciprocity in standards, and a fair income. And that is something, another point where we have already in the second week of the mandate launched 2 proposals. One, a targeted amendment on the Common Markets Organization, namely to encourage farmers to regroup in producer organizations to allow them to strengthen their bargaining position in the value chain. But also we have included mandatory written contracts, because if I'm a producer and I know what my input costs are, I know my harvest from last year, and I know what is the benefit, the profit margin I need, well then I can make a price where I know that it is covering the costs. We can, of course, not say that, because that is the request by many, that the selling below production costs should not be allowed. Well, but what is happening then with the product if it's produced and there is no market for that or no offer for that? This is, of course, something where we have to create the conditions, but we can't define production costs which will be different from my farm to your farm, from my region to your region. So this is something very difficult, but nonetheless, with the reinforcing of producer organization with written contracts, I think we are addressing this. We have done at the same moment a clarification proposal on the Unfair Trading Practices Directive, because in the cross-border application there have been some, let's say, share of competences that needed to be clarified. So this will contribute to get better prices and safer prices for the agriculture products. Then another proposal that we are going to put on the table is, of course, one of for the wine sector. I just mentioned the wine sector is heavily under pressure, but we have as well had the conclusions of the high-level group on wine, and there as well we have the member states have been around the table, but as well the stakeholders, and there we launched last Friday the inter-service consultation. So I'm quite keen that at the end of March, or more likely the beginning of April, this proposal could be on the table to address this. So for me, these are some of the remarks I wanted to share with you. This, of course, just the beginning of this long travel and a lot of initiatives that we have identified in this vision. And of course, I think it's now as well about building trust with the communities, and therefore I think you have not only with the civil society but in general with the society, and there your role comes in very crucially as well to give guidance on certain developments that we have and on certain trends. And thank you very much for the good cooperation, which I hope we can continue over the next 5 years. Thank you.